Hey up from the duck YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT and Happy New Year. I hope you have had a great 2025 and even if not, we've got a new year now. A lot of new stuff coming out on this channel. Hope you had a good Christmas as well. I understand the last video, as ever, it seems to be in this house, poor internet connection. And see if that alters the case of anything. Hopefully there's no stoppages in the middle of these ones because it's been frustrating me as much as it's been frustrating you, I can assure you that. We're going to start off with the New Year's Day games. We've got Crystal Palace versus Fulham. Two middle of the road sort of Premier League teams, I suppose you could say, although Crystal Palace obviously done quite well over the past few seasons or so. Annoyingly, the Premier League decided to opt out of doing Boxing Day fixtures this year, so that says a lot. It is actually 11th versus 12th. 3 losses in a row now for Palace, 3 wins in a row for Fulham. I'm going to have to go with therefore a 2-0 win to Fulham in this one. Liverpool versus Leeds. Liverpool struggling with a few missing during this AFCON, Salah most notably. They're still doing all right, doing on a very good run of form actually. But I wouldn't be surprised. Leeds have been picking up a few points recently, and if Leeds win this, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Leeds United unlikely win. Brentford versus Tottenham Hotspur. Brentford bit mid-table at the moment. I think it's fair to say. Spurs, I'm keep on thinking they should be higher. They should be in like the top 7, but they're not because they're just not consistent enough, and therefore Thomas Frank is under pressure, and he's up against his former club. He's up against his former coaching pal in the opposite dugout. We've got to therefore go with a Tottenham win, 2-0 to Tottenham. But there'll be all sorts of snakes probably and stuff flying around Brentford. You know how it is. Sunderland versus Manchester City. Man City are in impeccable form, winning game after game after game. And to me, I think City are going to win the league at this rate. They don't look like slipping up to absolutely anyone, especially not Sunderland. Even though Sunderland are doing decently well this season, I think this is an obstacle too much for the Mackems to overcome. And Man City will win this one by 2-0. In about half an hour's time, we've got Blackburn Rovers versus Wrexham. Wrexham have had quite a good festive period. I think you can all agree on that. They've had 2 wins to their name now and pushed them firmly up the table a bit. Into outside hopefuls for being involved in the playoffs. I'm still not convinced about that myself. I think around about that 12th place mark, maybe where they finish. Blackburn have been involved in a relegation scrap, but they're unbeaten in 3 and only 1 loss in 6 now. A lot of draws in there, but maybe Ewood Park can get something here. 4-1 to Blackburn Rovers. It's an unlikely result, but you know what? I'm feeling a bit risky at the moment. Bristol City versus Portsmouth. Portsmouth just above a relegation zone. Having had a good festive period, it has meant that they have got a 3-point cushion now over Oxford United. I'm 50-50 between Portsmouth and Oxford, to be honest, of the team to be going down at present. They are travelling to Bristol City, who are in the hunt for a playoff position, and I definitely think they can make it if they get some consistency going, and why can't they? I think Bristol City win this game relatively comfortably at Ashton Gate. 3-0 to the Robins. Not a extremely unlikely score. Charlton Athletic versus Coventry City. Almost predictably, Coventry lost up against Ipswich in their last game. However, you can't take away how good they have been so far this season. even though we've had a couple of shocks to the system so far, is the squad depth and good job January has opened, which does throw up a load of different conundrums as well. Charlton, however, are dropping like a stone. They've now dropped down to 20th, which is probably about where they're going to finish on this current synopsis. And Coventry, I think, get back to winning ways in this one. 2-1 to the Sky Blues. Derby County versus Middlesbrough. Now, Middlesbrough have been doing well this season, but they're 3 games without a win now. I think Derby could get potentially an opportunity. I know we've not been great. A few too many draws for a lot of us liking. But I've got the new kit now for Christmas. Hopefully it's some good luck charms involved with that. And that Derby do well in this New Year's game. 1-0 to the Rams is what I'm going to go with. KG win, but it's a win I'll take nevertheless today. Any way it comes, a scrappy game. Hull City versus Stoke City. 4th place Hull are doing a very good job. And how they've managed to get into the playoffs is beyond me. Stoke have burnt off the boil a bit, but I reckon they definitely have the squad capable of getting themselves back into that mix. Almost certainly, and I'm not sure Hull's going to manage to keep up that form. Surely not. 2-1 to Stoke, therefore. Even though it's probably a bit about against the grain, it is the Championship after all. Ipswich Town versus Oxford United. Ipswich in the top 3. 2 points now behind Middlesbrough. I said watch out for Ipswich. They would be flying up the league, and they well and truly are. And I do think they take that second spot. They've certainly been on a really good run of form, and up against an Oxford side in the relegation zone. They're there for a reason. It's top 3 versus bottom 3, and it's going to be Ipswich to win it. 3-0. Freeze all around. Preston North End versus Sheffield Wednesday. Although Sheffield Wednesday have had some good news of late of a preferred bidder being announced and a couple of points to their name, this may be a stretch too far. They're taking on Preston, who lost their last game before that good run of form, and they're still looking very competent to be able to get into the playoffs. 3-1 to Preston North End. I think it will end in this one. On to Queen's Park Rangers versus Norwich City. I was being generous to Norwich over the festive period. And you know what? They haven't been bad of late, but they did lose their last game up against Watford. And I think in the change of events in this one, I think Queen's Park Rangers, they're looking like a side, if they stop conceding so many goals, can actually get up the table. So yeah, QPR to win this one, 3-0 at Loftus Road. Southampton versus Millwall. Millwall in the playoffs. I mean, it's an interesting championship. If you don't follow the championship, I would advise doing it. It's really hectic this season. We are so back, and Southampton haven't won rather in the last 4 games. They're very much mid-table, and you'd expect them to be top half at least. At the moment, they're in the bottom half of the table, but I can't see them winning this one. Millwall to win this one 2-1 at St Mary's. Swansea City versus West Bromwich Albion. Lots of talk flying around about Mason potentially losing his job at West Brom. And if they lose this one, surely they'll be more than content to pull the trigger. They are up against a side of Swansea who have been in a bit of a dogfight this season, I think it's fair to say. They do know how to get the odd results, and actually there's not too much, I'd say, separating these two teams. I'm going to have to go with a draw, a 1-1 draw at Liberty Stadium. Watford versus Birmingham City. Birmingham haven't won in a very long time. They keep on getting overrated, I think. I don't think they're as good as people think. I think they are just a mid-table team. Okay, I think they can probably finish about 12th this season and then push. There you go, I said it. And they're up against a Watford side who've been really, really good at it recently. In fact, they are arguably the most informed team in the division, Watford. They've pummeled themselves from being involved potentially in a relegation mid-table scrap to being in 6th place And that's what a run of form does in the Championship, because it's wide open this season. And I'm going to have to go with Watford at Vicarage Road to win this 2-0 to the Hornets. Is anyone overly surprised by that one? Just checking. I think we're still recording. There may be a few jumps in the recording at the end of it. That will not be ideal. But I can't do anything about that, sorry. Sheffield United versus Leicester City. Leicester, very mid-table, but they are against a Sheffield United team who have been pretty dreadful. Well, both of these teams have been poor for their relative speaking standards, but even by Sheffield United standards, being 17th is well under par. And I think Leicester are going to win this one 2-1 to Leicester City. On to League One. We've got Doncaster Rovers hosting Bolton Wanderers. This game would have had a very different outcome if it was predicted about 4 months ago. However, it's not, and therefore we don't need to worry too much about it. But 5 losses in a row for Doncaster Rovers. I do think Grant McCann is very much in realistic danger of being sacked. Darren Moore was sacked the other day, and it seems to be the case that no loyalty is around nowadays in football. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Grant McCann is sacked. It's against a difficult game with Bolton. They're in the playoff positions as we speak. Very much likely to get them, I would say. They're a big club in this league, and they're going to win this one 2-1 at the Keep Moat Stadium. Exeter City versus Luton Town. Luton down in 8th. They've dropped off a bit, it must be said, compared to their lofty days in the Premier League. Outside shout maybe being in the playoffs this season, and you wouldn't rule against it until it's mathematically impossible. Exeter, however, they're in a bit of a hit and miss form at the moment, but if they suddenly get something from this game, they go win this game, they go shooting at the table. It's so close. If you look at the table, Wycombe Wanderers in 9th are 3 points away from Plymouth Argyle in the relegation zone. It is mad close to the season, and I think at St James's Park, is that where it is? Yeah, it is. Maybe Exeter can get something from this. 1-0 to the Gretchians. An unlikely win, maybe. But we're going to go with it. Leyton Orient versus ASC Wimbledon. 16th versus 17th. Wimbledon have had a bit of a shaky run of form of late. Same with Leyton Orient, to be honest. Both of these two teams in this all-London affair. But I think it's going to go to the EastEnders as Orient claim the win in this one. 1-0 at Brisbane Road. A very close, narrow game. Lincoln City versus Huddersfield Town. Huddersfield have managed to get themselves in playoffs, and rightfully so. A strong team and on a strong run of form as well, the Terriers. And therefore, up against a Lincoln side who are equally strong, it's going to be a tough one. It could really go either way. Lincoln are currently the best team in the league on form-wise. Really shocking to read that, maybe. But yeah, I think maybe Huddersfield get the win here. 2-0 to Huddersfield Town. Someone's good run is going to come to an end. Mansfield Town versus Bradford City. Bradford are decent. That's putting it mildly. In the top 3, the Bantams have been the surprise package, arguably, for this season. Although, if you looked at my prediction video at the start of the season, it's not too... Some of them have been disastrous. It's not too far off for Bradford. We will do a recap at the end of the season. Mansfield, they're in 11th. Bit mid-table, you could argue. I think Bradford will win this one fairly comfortably. 3-0 to the Bantams. And that would surely put them in the top 2. Northampton Town versus Stockport County. Stockport are looking a bit hit and miss, and I'm worried that they could drop out of the playoffs at this point in proceedings, which obviously isn't great. I mean, Northampton have been flying up and down the table all over the shot of over the last few weeks. And now I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably about right. 20th place, maybe 19th, maybe even 18th. But around about that spot, I wouldn't say would be too far on this. But I think maybe they can get something from this. I'm going to go a scrappy 1-all draw in this one. Port Vale versus Blackpool. Darren Moore being sacked. What do we make of it? Do let me know in the comment section down below. I think it's a bit harsh. He did get them promoted, but I think you are looking at a side at the moment that isn't full of confidence. It must be said. Their caretaker manager is Jamie Smith. I'm not entirely sure who he is. I don't think he's got too much pedigree. And I'm also interested to see who they go with in the first place. But yeah, I'd say it's been a harsh dismissal considering Port Vale were overwhelming favourites to be relegated this season. And I know it's been a hard run of form that I don't think there's many better coaches which would actually want to go to Port Vale. But new manager bounce up against a Blackpool side that is on a really good run of form, actually. You'd suspect Blackpool to win, but I'm going to go an unlikely Port Vale win. A 3-0 win for Valiants. Now, this is why they call me the most mad YouTuber. I don't know if they do, but I'm definitely up there. Reading versus Burton Albion. Burton hovering just above that relegation zone, as you would expect, really. The Brewers always do this. Must be a night like heart stopping to follow the Brewers. Who am I kidding? No one follows the Brewers anyway. But they're going up against Reading, who are, top half at the moment of the League One table, probably about where they deserve to be, around about 10th. With their levels of inconsistency this season. But yeah, Adam Majewski, I think Reading win this one by 3-1. Rotherham United versus Peterborough United. Two serial underperformers this season, although Peterborough on a good run of form, unbeaten in 4 wins during that spell. Rotherham, different case entirely. 5 losses rather in a row. I would have to say at this period of time, you're going to have to argue Matt Hamshaw will have to walk the walk because I'm not convinced on his ability to be able to get Rotherham out of this mess. But I think maybe they can win this one. I think it does happen. It's a wild old division. 2-1 to the Millers in a result that will seem to have come out of absolutely nowhere. But yeah, at the moment, I can't see Rotherham not being relegated. Stevenage versus Plymouth Argyle. Another team in the relegation zone is Plymouth. But that's partly due to their full form in the first half of the season. They've been picking up a few wins of late. And you know what? Stevenage aren't the team that they were a few weeks ago. I still think Stevenage could potentially reach the playoffs, but they're not looking half as good as they were in the first half of the season. And as a result, I think Plymouth will get a win here. 2-1 to Argyle. And taking all 3 points back to Devon Coast. Wigan Athletic versus Barnsley. Barnsley very mid-table at this point in proceedings, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of pressure being applied upon Conor Hurahan's head at the moment in time. I don't think it's necessarily warranted. I think it's a very tough division this time round, and a very topsy-turvy one of that. And I can say equally odd sort of team in Wigan. Both of these two teams arguably slightly underperforming this season. Both of these two teams have spent far too much of their recent history in League One. And I think points to be shared at this one. A 1-1 draw at the DW Stadium. Wycombe Wanderers versus Cardiff City. Cardiff City aren't invincible, and they're certainly not running away with it as a lot of people would suspect. They're probably still going to win the league. That wouldn't be too surprising, but they've still got a lot of hiccups to potentially go along the way. And maybe in this one they will. They're up against a Wycombe side who are... They're currently top of this extraordinarily long pile. sides that could potentially be anywhere between ninth and relegated. But they are the top of it, and they're, I think, probably rightfully so. They're a side that you would imagine to be able to get into a position. Um, and I think maybe Wickham could win this one. Oh no, not my mouse again. My mouse keeps on freezing. I'm going to see what I can do with this. I believe we are back. I believe we're back. We were temporarily down there, temporary problems. I think we're back in this one, and I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Wickham Wanderers at Adams Park against Cardiff City. Okay, on to League Two. We've got Barnet taking on Crawley Town. Interesting. One of the fair, these two teams probably not got that much to play for, if we're being honest, this season. Barnet is very much in mid-table. Crawley maybe challenging for safety. I think that is potentially an argument that you could make, but I think they'll probably finish about that 19th mark. There are certainly worse teams in the division than Crawley. However, Crawley are on a bad run of form. A lot of them teams down there are looking absolutely dreadful at the moment. None of them are picking up any wins anywhere you look. So if someone just goes on a run in there, they're certainly well clear. But yeah, they're up against a Barnet side in 12th, a bit 50-50. Yeah, I'm going to go with a win maybe against the Grain here. 2-1 to Crawley Town. As I said, I don't think they're going to be the team which is going to be relegated. And if they just start getting a bit of a run of form, and this is the sort of time which teams do suddenly start getting on runs of form because, you know, we've had a chance in January to have a bit of a reset. And if you're a mid-table side that is a few points off relegation zone, I wouldn't be sleeping in this transfer window because that is a real danger that the other teams around you strengthen them and you're left wondering what could have been. Barrow versus Salford City. Barrow in 19th, one of them ones that it has been immensely interesting. They sacked their manager not that long ago, Barrow, and have not got a replacement yet. Neil McDonald is the interim. Lots of names being thrown around. Tell you who is vacant at the moment. Darren Moore would be an interesting one, certainly to make. Would he want to go down to Barrow? I'm not sure. You couldn't go much further wrong, though, if you did go down wrong. Andy Wing, though, did get sacked before Christmas time. I don't think he did too bad, to be fair, Andy Wing. I think a little bit harsh, maybe in his dismissal. Anyway, they're up against Salford, who are a really strong side this season. They're in the playoffs. But I'm not convinced. I'm telling you now, I'm not fully convinced. They don't score enough goals. Will they actually be able to maintain this form? That is really good form, by the way, at the moment, to be able to carry on taking them as far as they need to go. If they suddenly start slipping up, I think it could be curtains. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw in this one, which is definitely an unlikely outcome. But you know what? We sometimes love to do these sort of things. Bromley versus Newport County. Bromley have managed to get to the top of the league due to the festive run. 5 wins in a row, 5-star performances all round. Definitely going to get automatic promoted. My one concern is MK Dons will suddenly just turn it on and claim a title from the Bromley side, but I think Bromley will get automatic promotion now. I think Michael Cheek is such a good player that they got in their squad. But yeah, everywhere I look, Bromley seems to be doing an incredible job. And accordingly, you know what? They're gonna have to get them to win this one. They're up against a Newport side in the relegation zone. You can't be back in Newport in this one in any way, shape, or form, even though they did win the last game and seem to have turned a bit of a corner. 5-2 to Bromley. Huge scoreline. Cambridge United versus Walsall. Walsall are, I think very much in danger of slipping out again and having to settle for the playoffs. They did this last year, and that's never a good thing. They lost their last game. They look a bit shaky at times. They're still all right. Still keeping going. Still got a 3-point difference, but MK Dons have got a huge goal difference swing. And they're up against a Cambridge side, which is very, very strong. 50-50 for me, likely to get the playoffs, right? I think you can't rule out Cambridge, and I think Cambridge will actually win this one at home 2-0 to the U's. Just going to quickly check. Are we still out live? Well, I've got a white screen on YouTube tab, so we're going to assume yes. Yes, we do seem to be, which is always good. Colchester United versus MK Dons. This is also an interesting one because I think MK Dons get the title. Still, it's an odd one to say, but I can see it. But I also think Colchester United get into the playoffs. It's an odd call that I have, but I think it will happen. I think they get like 6th place, which would mean that they need to make 6 points up over the other teams around them. But I think it could happen. But I think MK Dons win this one by 3-2. But it'll be a good end-to-end game from neutral. Crewe Alexandra versus Cheltenham Town. Yeah, Crewe mid-table, 13th, very much as you would expect. Cheltenham, they're down in 18th, although had a good run before the last game, but I think maybe they start tumbling down a bit to maybe around about that 20th mark. I did say at the start of the season they'll be relegated. Not seeing that at the moment. And I think maybe Cheltenham do win this one against a Crewe side who don't seem to have much to play for. 3-2 to Cheltenham Town. Fleetwood Town versus Grimsby Town, the home of the knackered northern coastal towns. Who are, well, Fleetwood, they're beginning to look maybe like they can compete for the playoffs. Still not overly convinced. Grimsby, bit underperforming compared to where they were at the start of the season, maybe where you'd expect them to be for a regular season. But it'd be great to see Grimsby push up a bit, and I think Fleetwood do win this one. 1-0 to the COD Army, even though both teams are famous and synonymous with COD. Harrogate Town versus Tranmere Rovers. Harrogate, they're in big dire trouble, to be honest. They are millions of miles away from where they should be. They're on the bottom of the league, struggling like hell, and they're up against the Tranmere Rovers side that they're a bit. I'm not too sure how to necessarily place my finger on it. They seem to be in that bottom half, a bit 50-50. I'm going to go with a Harrogate win, though. A shock to you all, sure. But I think Harrogate could get something from this one. I still believe they will be relegated, along with Bristol Rovers and my 2 at the moment. I'm thinking will be relegated. But 3-2 to Harrogate Town. Let's not be negative. It's a new year after all. Notts County versus Accrington Stanley. Accrington Stanley, who are they? Exactly. 16th place, very mid-table, very sort of the performances you'd expect from both Accrington Stanley and Tranmere, very mid-table sides. Let's be honest. Notts County, well, they're involved in a playoff hunt. Are the old Notts County back? Are we back to sort of the heydays where you saw the Notts County Chesterfields of this world challenging for promotion? I don't know. There was certainly a decent era of football, and I think Notts County do win this one 2-0. Fairly routine win for the Magpies. Oldham Athletic versus Chesterfield. Talking about Chesterfield, I'm still very 50-50 over whether Chesterfield reach the playoffs or not. Because they build you up and then they tear you down. They just actually made a signing, interestingly, at Chesterfield of somebody from Canada on a free transfer. But they're up against an Oldham side who you never quite know which one's going to turn up on the day and have a lot of draws to their name. Second amount in the decision of 10 draws. Maybe we get a draw in this one as well. A 2-2 draw at Boundary Park. Shrewsbury Town versus Bristol Rovers. A other end of the tale of the story. The two sides that are struggling to avoid relegation at the moment. It's a must-win game, either way, for either side. Both of them are just above relegation zone. Shrewsbury by 2 points, Bristol Rovers by 1 point. You can't be affording to give away and lose this one. Certainly not. 0-0 draw in this game, therefore, is the only logical conclusion, which would mean that Harrogate would get out relegation zone if these predictions become right. Swindon Town versus Gillingham. The team who have the most amount of draws in the table is Gillingham in 11, and 5 of them have come in the last 6 games. They've had a lot of draws, and up against the Swindon team, who is a very strong team. We can all accept that. I've definitely been sleeping on them for quite a while this season, but I'm content to say that they deserve automatic promotion if they get it. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, though, against the draw specialists. Aston Villa versus Nottingham Forest. Although Aston Villa lost heavy up against Arsenal 4-1, it was in that last game, they're still up there in the Champions League positions for very much a reason. And I'm hoping that Nottingham Forest get relegated. I really am. And you know what? They are 4 points clear. But I still have hope West Ham turn a corner. So I'm going to predict Villa to win this one. 2-1 to Aston Villa. Come on, Villa. Brighton and Hove Albion versus Burnley. I think Brighton aren't on the greatest run of form. Maybe we could see a draw in this one. Why ever not? A 1-1 draw down on the south coast. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus West Ham United. Wolverhampton Wanderers got a point up against the unlikeliest suspects of Man United. Okay, I did predict them to win in the last one. And you know what? Maybe this point was what Wolves needed to spur them on to get a final victory after 19 games. The only other team to have not won in 19 games was in the top flight is back in 1902-03 is a team called Bolton Wanderers. That's how far back you have to go. And they are taking on West Ham. But I think they do win this one, Wolves. So they have something at least to celebrate. 1-0 to Wolves. It's not going to be a classic. Whoever wins this gets Strand Larson. Shall we say that? Because there's been a lot of linking to him for West Ham at the moment. Bournemouth versus Arsenal. Ironically, Bournemouth aren't on a great run of form either. But it'd be such a typical thing for Arsenal to lose this game up against Bournemouth and let Man City get to the top of the league. So 2-0 to Bournemouth for the vitality. International League, we go Aldershot Town versus Solihull Moors. I think, interestingly, Aldershot's managed to get a good run of form enough to get them out of relegation zone, which I wasn't surprised about. I think they could maybe even push up to about 15th, to be honest, if games carry on going their way. Aldershot really shouldn't have been involved in that relegation scrap in the first place, and it's taken them far too long to get out again. I think Solihull Moors will probably end up around about that 11th space mark. They had their early day scare of flirting with relegation. I think Aldershot win this one. I really do. 3-1 to the Shots. on their 4 games unbeaten run, extending it to 5. They're beginning to ease the pressure maybe slightly on themselves, even though they're only just for relegation zone. Altrincham versus Morecambe. Morecambe occasionally are picking up points now, which is great to see. I still think they're relegated. I'm not gonna lie, I think maybe even behind Truro. But you know what? They could begin to string together a few results here and there. And they're up against an Altrincham side that is lost the last 4 in a row. Beginning to see cracks emerging in the Greater Manchester side at present. Not convinced, and I think maybe Neil Gibson needs to do the walk. I know he's only been in for a very short period of time. That I don't think he's that good. 2-0 to Morecambe could be the gravestone. Because that would mean that Morecambe then are level on points with Aldershot if the games go their way. Could we see the most unlikely of upsets with Morecambe staying up? Boreham Wood versus York City. I was very shocked to come back from holidays out in Shropshire and seeing Boreham Wood top of the National League. 5 wins in a row. What a fantastic performances they've had of late. Up against a York side who are the best team on form in the National League, unbeaten in a very long period of time. I do think York win the league. I've been saying that for a while, and I think this will be an even game. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I can't pick a winner. I really can't. They're both doing a fantastic job in the last few games. Boston United versus Eastleigh. Eastleigh, very mid-table, as you'd expect, around that 14th place mark. They'll be 14th, 13th. They always are around that mid-table bit. Normally about 12th is where they end up. Up against Boston's side that isn't doing great at the moment. Then they'll stay up, but maybe not as comfortably as we would like to all envisage. 2-1 to Eastleigh in this one. Extending that unbeaten run to 4 games. Suddenly begins to look a bit better then, doesn't it? Carlisle United versus Wealdstone. Wealdstone did have a decent enough performances, but they've dropped off a bit late as well, and maybe will be content for a mid-table finish. I don't think it'd be too bad for the Stones in that one. Carlisle, well, you expect them to be really challenging for the title, and they are. They're 1 point away, but I still suspect they're going to have to settle for around about that 5th place mark. I think they get overtaken by Forest Green. It's going to be a very exciting National League playoffs, I will say that. I think Carlisle do win this one at home 1-0 to the Cumbrians. On to the next one, got Forest Green Rovers versus SC Halifax Town. Forest Green Rovers, not as strong as they potentially might be. We've already had complaints coming out from the manager about the side is too big for some of the players who are playing at them, or something along the lines. It was a daft statement, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. But Halifax are 3 points now off the playoffs. Heck of a lot of goal difference to make up. But the Shaman certainly are rocking up and putting on a show at the moment. I'm going to with a 1-1 draw down in Gloucestershire. Rochdale versus Brackley Town. Rochdale lost their last one, and we're beginning to see the losing mojo maybe of Rochdale. I don't know. It's hard to say. A lot of them games in hands are still there. We don't know how they're necessarily going to go. Brackley have won back-to-back games. I wouldn't be surprised here if Brackley cause an upset and win. I'm saying it now, 2-1 to Brackley Town. Scunthorpe versus Sutton United. Team in relegation zone in 21st versus a team in the playoffs in 6th. 4 wins in a row to Scunthorpe compared to Sutton, who are without a win in the last 3. How do I think this is going? Well, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Why ever not? Yeah, I think Sutton do stay up. At the moment, I think most likely to go down. Is it mad to say that Tamworth would potentially plummet and be relegated? Potentially. But I think it could happen. Southend United versus Truro City. Truro are going to be relegated. I know they've picked up a bit. They've only lost once in the last 4, actually gaining some results. But, Southend in the playoffs, quite justifiably, to be honest. And I think they need to ease some pressure off themselves. So a competent and complete performance from Southend. 4-0 to the Shrimpers. Tamworth versus Gateshead. If there was a chance for Tamworth to suddenly prove me wrong with what I just stated, it would be in this game. They have only won once in the last 6 games, have lost all the other ones, and been absolutely abysmal. But no one is as bad as Gateshead. Alan Armstrong, get him out of here. He's done a horrendous job at Gateshead at the moment. They're bottom of the league. Lost as long as I can think back. They look so uninterested. And defensively, shambolic. 58 goals conceded. They're not even scoring goals anymore, which is their one saving grace. It's going to be a 2-1 win to Tamworth in this one. And Tamworth aren't even a good team at the moment. Woking versus Hartlepool United. 11th versus 9th. Not too much difference between these two teams, although I would have to impartially say that Hartlepool are the better team due to their former Football League status, of course. But I think Woking could win this one here. It's on the cards for the Cardinals, and we're at home. We're going to go 3-2 to Woking. Yeovil Town versus Braintree Town. Yeovil way mid-table in 15th. I can never place my finger on Yeovil at the moment, but don't seem to be as accomplished of a team as maybe we might want to see them as. But Braintree, I think they're in danger of potentially being relegated. They're only 1 point above a relegation zone. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to have to say Yeovil win this at home. 3-1 to the Glovers. On to the next one, Alfreton Town versus Hereford. Another must-win game for Alfreton today. And then I think it's maybe the third. But they're in the relegation zone at the moment, but only by a point now. It's within touch and grasp. Come on, you Reds. You need to just get out of that zone. And look, they're up against a Hereford side who are also in the relegation zone. I would still argue better than Alfreton. They've got better stats in all the other fields. But it's a points tally which counts in the end. Even though Hereford have had 2 games less to play. Something. I think it'll be something of a nothing game and a 0-0 draw. But I'm really hoping both can win. They've renamed their stadium. They were going to rename it Footy McFootface. They had a fan consultation and they did rename North Street, but I can't remember what on earth to. Something not that interested. Bedford Town versus AFC Fylde. AFC Fylde are in second place. Just losing out now, actually. I think they will finish probably second. I think South Shields are beginning to putting together a run of form again, which will make them almost definitely promoted. Bedford, well, they're nobody, to be honest. They're going to be around about that 17th, 16th spot mark coming in the end of the season. Not really too bad of a season for Bedford, I'm sure, but I think they'd much rather be in the National League South. 1-0 to Fylde. Not too much of a surprise to anyone, is it? Buxton are taking on South Shields at home. And I know how much I've just been waxing lyric about South Shields, winning 4 in a row and all sorts, about to go on crazy in a form. But I think Buxton, they've won the last couple. Are we seeing Buxton back to their very best? And if so, can they get to the playoffs? I'm not quite convinced yet. I'm not going to draw out and say something ridiculous like that. But I think they definitely will challenge for them now. 1-0 to Buxton in this one at home, I think could happen. It's going to be a tough game, though. Chester versus Worksop Town. Chester, mid-table as they come, 13th place at the moment. You couldn't really say that there's a more mid-table team than Chester, even though they're only 3 points off the playoffs, down in 13th. You just don't know which side is going to turn up. Worksop had a good, decent run of form, but did lose their last one. And I mean, that was against the Buxton side, but even so, I think I'm not going to say Works are going to be relegated anymore, am I? Go on, we'll say it. We'll say it again for the sake of it. We'll say Works will get relegated. I'm just hoping it does happen, but I think in this one it'll be a 2-2 draw at the Diva Stadium. Chorley versus Leamington. Leamington, bottom of the league, quite understandably. Somehow managed to rescue a point against Alfreton, but have been pretty shoddy in almost every game this season. Oh, no, we didn't rescue a point against Leamington. It was against someone else. But then Alfreton. Well, who was it up against? Doesn't matter. Anyway, they've got another tough game against Chorley, who I still am thinking, don't sleep on Chorley, they will get the playoffs. They've yet to demonstrate to me any belief and reason why, but they're only 3 points off the playoffs. I think they could do it. I think they could. I think Chorley win this one 2-1. Mark my words, Chorley might get the playoffs at the end of this season. Darlington versus Macclesfield. Ignore that if it doesn't happen. Darlington are in 6th. They are very much a team that you'd expect to get playoffs so far, but a bit more 50-50 of late. Macclesfield. Well, would someone like to address what's happening with Macclesfield? Because everyone had a lot of hype around them, and now we're currently 15th. I think rightfully so, we're in that sort of mid-table position. I mean, just not being consistent. Is it a case of Macclesfield just being well overrated above their station? Could be the case. But I'm gonna have to back Macclesfield to win this one. 1-0, not a huge result, but it swings in the favour of a team from Cheshire. Kidderminster Harriers versus Curzon Ashton. Kidderminster Harriers are beginning to do what I said they'd do. Won 5 in a row. Still not convinced that they, all of their performances are just still not scoring enough, but the goals are beginning to come. And they're coming thick and fast. And I think Curzon Ashton may be the next one to face the wrath of the Harriers. 3-0 to Kidderminster. Merthyr Town versus Kings Lynn Town. Merthyr Town in 3rd place. It must be commended. The Welsh side are doing a phenomenal job. They're doing exactly what I said. They need to make their home ground a fortress and then try and gain some results away from home. And that is exactly what they're doing. And they're doing more than that. Kings Lynn, an interesting side. Not one in the last 5, but still you'd suspect to be up and amongst them. Maybe Kings Lynn win this one. We'll go with a mental result, a 1-0 Kings Lynn Town win to the Linnets. Why ever not? You don't watch this to be sitting back and eating popcorn watching the mundane results, do you? Peterborough Sports versus Marine. Marine are so 50-50, and I think they do come tumbling down a bit. I have been saying that for a while. But yeah, that 10th place does feel a bit lofty at the moment. Peterborough Sports, I think, do get relegated. They're back on their bad form again. But maybe they win this one. You know what? I'm gonna retract what I said. I'm gonna have Peterborough Sports to win this one. 2-0 to Peterborough Sports. I'll be nice to them. Radcliffe versus Oxford City. I think we're gonna have another upset. I think Oxford City go to Radcliffe and cause an upset. Even though Radcliffe were beaten in 4, it doesn't matter. Even though I think they're going to finish in the top 3, doesn't matter. I think Oxford City win this one by 3-1. Southport versus Scarborough Athletic. Scarborough are now actually holding on to their playoff spot, so we need something to solidify that position they're in, and where better to do it than up against Southport, which they did have a good run of form, but that luck is now fading away, and they're now back 1 point above the relegation zone, struggling in and out of games now. 1-0 to Scarborough Athletic. It won't be a pretty game by any metric, but they need that win. Spennymoor Town versus AFC Telford United. Spennymoor, far too many draws at the moment, far too many. And therefore up against a team of Telford's who were doing decent until they were whomped by Kidderminster. I think we could see an even game. There's only 2 points separating these two teams, despite one being in 9th and one being in 14th. 1-1 draw in County Durham here. On to National League South, got AFC Totton versus Enfield Town. AFC Totton, I keep on willing them to do well, but they just keep on dashing my hopes and dreams because they keep on not hitting the same heights as they did before. But maybe they can do it against an Enfield Town side who are firmly in the relegation zone and will probably be relegated this season, in all honesty. Yeah, I think this one ends 1-0 to Totton. You know what? I don't think it would be too bad for Totton to be in mid-table. I more suspect, however, now that they will begin falling into around that 18th spot mark and maybe in a bit of trouble. Bath City versus Ebbsfleet United. Bath are such a 50-50 side. You don't know which one's going to turn up on the day. Ebbsfleet have won the last 3 in a row. Knocking on the door of the playoffs. Not convinced I'll get it myself. I still think Maidenhead might have a tale to tell, but Ebbsfleet, not convinced. But I think they do win this one. 3-1 to the Fleet. Chelmsford City versus Maidstone United. 13th versus 6th. Maidstone have done a phenomenal job of late, and I think do deserve to finish in the playoffs. 5 games unbeaten. If they're carrying on the form that they're in at the moment, 10 out of 10 performances. Chelmsford only 2 wins in the last 6, but I think it could be a 0-0 draw. I don't know why. I just got a gut feeling that in Essex it's going to end a 0-0 draw, which won't be great for the side from Kent. Dover Athletic versus Torquay United. Dover have lost the last 3 in a row, but before that, I've won the last 3 in a row. Dover suddenly becoming undone again. Who would have thought it? Torquay, though, is going to be a difficult game no matter what for Dover, as Torquay are a side who are got aspirations, maybe even for the title, even though they're 5 points off it. I think they maybe finish second place, but they need to get consistency, which at the moment the Devon sides just don't have. Therefore, a 2-2 draw at the Crabble is what I've got predicted. Hampton Richmond Borough versus Chesham United. Chesham are as mid-table as they come. 12th place, 33 points, -1 goal difference. Up against Hampton Richmond Borough side who I don't think will be relegated because I think Farnborough maybe take their place. But they have well and truly shown to me why they're sinking. Consistency is just lacking in the greater London and around clubs out in the far west of London. 1-0 to Chesham United in this one. Hemel Hempstead Town versus Dagenham and Redbridge. 11th versus 8th. Hemel Hempstead have now dropped out of the playoffs. Dagenham and Redbridge have yet to touch it, but will certainly be having expectations for former Football League side, you would imagine. 3-0 to Dagenham and Redbridge in this one. Maybe a bit unlikely, but I can see it. Hornchurch versus Salisbury. Hornchurch second place. It was kind of predictable they'll fall off in a bit. I think that's the 4th place mark. I think up against their opponents of Salisbury, who, let's face it, they're going to be involved in a relegation scrap. I can see them getting sucked right back into that. But I'm going to go with a strange 1-1 draw in this one. There is just a certain time when odd things do happen. Horsham versus Maidenhead United. Horsham are beginning to struggle. I realistically don't think they get to the playoffs at this point. I think Maidenhead maybe take their spot, and I think this is a game where it does get proven. I know Maidenhead lost their last one, but before that, 10 out of 10 performances all around. 1-0 to Maidenhead United in this one, going back to their winning vein of form. Slough Town versus Eastbourne Borough. Yeah, I mean, Slough are team definitely were in danger at 1 point relegation, but back-to-back wins have seen them lift out of a relegation zone now. to the much delight of a Rebels fan base. And up against an Eastbourne side, who I also think have the capacity to get out of it. Again, keep on saying it. String a run of form together and you're suddenly in safety. But at the moment, I can't see it. But I think we'll go in an even game in this one. 0-0 draw. On to the next one. Got Tunbridge Angels versus Dorking Wanderers. Tunbridge just above relegation zone by 2 points. Dorking, as you would suspect, in the playoffs in 5th. Maybe slightly underperforming this season, but I do think 5th is about where they deserve to be. But yeah, they're definitely underperforming compared to maybe their expectations to be at least top 3. And I'm going to go with an unlikely 1-0 win for Tunbridge Angels. Just yet again proving that Dorking aren't completely stable at the moment. Weston-super-Mare versus Farnborough. Weston-super-Mare in 3rd place in the table, maybe drop down to around. I think they can finish maybe up 3rd. But yeah, they're a decent side overall. That's Somerset side, and they're up against a Farnborough team who are in desperately danger of falling into that relegation zone. It's going to be an end-to-end enthralling game, but a 4-3 win to Weston-super-Mare. Worthing versus Chippenham Town. Chippenham have actually turned around 4 points in the last 2 games. Is this going to be the turning point? I don't think so. Chippenham, you're gone, long gone, relegated, and they're up against Worthing, who've won the last 5 games in a row. Worthing every day of the week win this one. 4-1 to Worthing. Leeds United versus Manchester United. Got to be a Manchester United win. Get some vengeance. Put Leeds to the sword. 2-0 to Man United. Everton versus Brentford. Fairly even game, I'm going to go with in this one. Everton outside shout maybe for Europe. 0-0 draw. We'll go in this one. Fulham versus Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool are the same kettle of fish as they were last season. 3-2 to Fulham as they right the wrongs in their last game. Newcastle United versus Crystal Palace. Newcastle, I'm still certain, can potentially get into the European positions. Whether that's through winning the cup or what. They're an odd team, Newcastle. They're just above Palace in the table, both on 26 points. A lot of teams are on that 26 points, actually, 4 in total. At St James Park, I've got to rate Newcastle to win this one. 5-0 to the Magpies. We're going to go heavy. Spurs are hosting Sunderland. And maybe Spurs drag together a bit of a result in this one. I think Sunderland maybe start fading away into mid-table, which wouldn't be a bad season. Let's face it. But 1-0 to Spurs in this one. This is when they start getting back to their former glory. Man City versus Chelsea. Chelsea being a bit of a banter SC, you could argue, at the moment. If you look, Chelsea are actually playing. Well, they lost against Villa. They drew up against Bournemouth. They've had a rubbish sort of festive period. Not won in 3 games now. Yeah, I'm going to have to back City to win this one as well. 3-1 to Man City. Birmingham City versus Coventry City. Is this going to carry on happening? It's going to be a West Midlands derby in this one. Out at St Andrews, where Coventry used to play at one point. But yes, I think maybe Birmingham win this one. It's a championship after all. We have mad results week after week. 3-0 to the Blues against the Sky Blues. Queen's Park Rangers versus Sheffield Wednesday. Will we be confirmed by this point that of the actual sale have gone through? We all hope so for the Sheffield Wednesday fans' sake. And you know what? As a result, I'm feeling generous. I'm going to give a win for Sheffield Wednesday in this one by 2-0. Sheffield United are taking on Oxford United. And it's got to be going up north, this one. I think Oxford United are in desperate trouble this season. And Sheffield United underperforming, but not in this one at Bramall Lane. 3-0 to the Blades. Blackburn Rovers versus Charlton Athletic. An interesting game, relatively speaking, because I think both of these are not doing great this season. We'll go 2-1 to Charlton Athletic. How about that? Bristol City versus Preston North End. Both of these two teams have got aspirations of the playoffs. Both are currently sitting neatly just outside it. It is 8th versus 7th as the table currently is, although that'll change by the end of today, no doubt. 2-2 draw in this one. Can't quite pick a winner. Derby County versus Wrexham. I'm going to go bold and say we get back-to-back wins. I think we beat Wrexham. Because I'm hoping Wrexham dip a bit in the next game. 3-1 to Derby County. I've gone bold. Can you blame me? I'm wearing Derby kit, for goodness sake, the new one this season. Hull City versus Watford. This is not going to be the same game as I think a few people would have had a reverse fixture. Both of these two teams are currently in the playoff zone and competing to stay there. Therefore, maybe an equal game. A 1-1 draw, I don't think, is beyond the realm of possibility in this one. Middlesbrough to Southampton, I think they get back to winning ways. Having lost to Derby and had a bit of a iffy festive period, they will have dropped out of the top three, and then suddenly that means they kick into gear and will beat Southampton 2-1. Millwall versus Swansea City. Fairly routine win, I think, for Millwall. Again, they won't do it pretty, as it never is with Millwall, is it? 1-0 to Millwall. Norwich City versus Stoke City. You know what? Stoke at this point may have had a really bad run of form, and therefore actually giving a win to Norwich may not be the maddest thing ever. 4-2 to Norwich City. It will be the most end-to-end ecstatic championship game we've seen in a while. Portsmouth versus Ipswich Town. I think maybe Ipswich drop a couple of points in this one. It's a championship after all, and could be a mad one. 2-2 draw at Fratton Park. I keep on backing Portsmouth, and they're just never going to do it, are they? Bolton Wanderers versus Northampton Town. The side chasing the playoffs is Bolton, and there's a reason for that. And I think they win at the Uniball, the University of Bolton Stadium, or the Tough Sheet Stadium, or whatever you want to call it, Reebok. 3-1 to Bolton Wanderers. Lincoln City taking on Peterborough United. Definite win for me in my eyes for Lincoln City. They're doing immense, top two. Who would have thought the Imps would have been so good this season? 5-1 to Lincoln City. I've been saying for seasons they're going to be the dark horse, and I think this season I just didn't. And there they are, actually proving that they are. Blackpool versus Bradford City. You know what? Blackpool doing decently. They've actually done quite good recently, Blackpool. The Lancashire coast side are on a really good run of form. And I therefore will have to back Blackpool to potentially win this. Maybe in a shock in this War of Roses occasion. 3-2 to Blackpool. It's going to be an interesting one. Cardiff City versus Wigan Athletic. Maybe some more drop points for Cardiff in this one. A 1-1 draw at home to Wigan. Doncaster Rovers versus Luton Town. I think that Grant McCann will be gone by this one, and a bounce will therefore ensue, and they beat Luton Town by 2-1. Huddersfield Town versus Exeter City. Got to be a win for the Terriers, surely at home at the John Smith Stadium. 2-0 to Huddersfield. On to the next one, Plymouth Argyle versus Burton Albion. Home Park is a really tough place to go to, and I think if they can make that fortress, they'll stay up. It's going to be a relegation 6-pointer, this one, as a lot of games are going to be shortly. 1-0 to Plymouth Argyle. Port Vale versus Barnsley. I think this new manager bounce, if they've appointed him, comes in well here. 5-0 to Port Vale. Absolutely mad predictions for Port Vale this year. If you're a Port Vale fan, you're going to be absolutely loving this video. But you probably also think I'm more mad than even the most deluded Port Vale fans. Reading versus Stockport County. Stockport County, they're in the playoffs for a reason, and I'm going to see them win this one. 3-1 to the side from just south of Manchester. Rotherham United versus Mansfield Town. Ex-Pit Derby, two ex-mining towns. Two ones that are very much in precarious danger of being relegated this season. We'll go in and win 3-3 draw. What an exciting game. Stevenage versus Leyton Orient. We've seen Stevenage fall off slightly, and maybe I think this one ends in a draw then. 0-0 at the Lamex Stadium. Wycombe Wanderers versus ASC Wimbledon. Wycombe outside shout for playoffs, maybe. We go with a 1-0 win at Adams Park for Wycombe Wanderers. They're doing quite well. They're doing all right. They're the top of leading that pack. They just need to get some form going. And Wimbledon aren't doing well this season. That's all this point in proceedings in the season anyway. No relegation 6-pointer. You got Cheltenham Town versus Crawley Town. 2-0 to Cheltenham in this one at Whaddon Road. I think home advantage rings true. MK Dons versus Chesterfield. Paul Warne versus Paul Cook. The Battle of the Pauls. And MK Dons, I think, will be ruthless at this one at the MK Stadium. 3-0. Barnet versus Crewe Alexandra. A bit of a mid-table matchup, this one. We're going to go at the Hive. Home advantage to Barnet. I think relatively good debut season for Barnet, maybe. 2-1. Barrow versus Bristol Rovers. Yeah, I think this could be an even game. I think maybe Bristol Rovers eke out a point. Neither of these two sides, I think, are overly great. It's a bit of a relegation toss-up as well. 19th versus 22nd. Invariably going to end a draw. 1-1 draw at that. Bromley versus Oldham Athletic. Well, we've talked already about how good Bromley have been at the moment. 10 out of 10. Now, Oldham are maybe a decent side, but Bromley are going to slaughter them. Carry on doing really well the scene from Great London. We love to see the upset. It's very much an underdog story. 3-0 to the Ravens. Cambridge United versus Grimsby Town. The reason Cambridge are currently not in the playoffs is because they do sometimes succumb to an upset. And I think Grimsby may be one which is going to cause it this time round. 2-1 to Grimsby Town. Colchester United versus Accrington Stanley. A bit of a similar story with Colchester at the moment. And I think Accrington can maybe be the ones who upset the apple cart, so to speak. 2-0 to Accrington Stanley. Harrogate Town versus Swindon Town. Now, everyone will probably be predicting Swindon in this one, and probably rightfully so. They're in the top two, and Harrogate at the bottom of the league. But I think in most unlikely occasions, at home, Harrogate win 1-0. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a darn old scrap, but I think Harrogate maybe claim the 3 points from absolutely nowhere. Newport County versus Tranmere Rovers. Tranmere, I think, are going to win this one. They actually know how to win games compared to Newport. That's part of the issue that Newport have at the moment. 4-1 to Tranmere Rovers. Notts County versus Gillingham. Wouldn't rule out if Gillingham start turning their draws into wins, they're having an outside shout of being in the playoffs. But at the moment, they drop a fair few points. But maybe they hold on to this one and get a win. 1-0 to Gillingham. Salford City versus Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury in a relegation battle. Not unsurprising to me, but maybe to a few other people. I think Salford win this one. They're in the playoffs for a reason. 2-1 to Salford City. Walsall versus Fleetwood Town. Fleetwood are challenging for the playoffs, and I think Walsall Are we going to see this all over again? And Vale all over again and happen just like last season? 6-2 to Fleetwood is what I'm going to go with. And Warsaw slowly start fluctuating down and have to settle for playoffs. Leicester City versus West Bromwich Albion. Surely Mason will have been gone by this point. If not, he'll go after this game, as I'm going to go 2-1 to Leicester City. And Chelmsford City versus Slough Town. We'll go with a mid-table Chelmsford to win this one, 3-1. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you are new around here. That would be hugely appreciated. Hopefully, this has been a stream which has been a bit more uninterrupted. I know there's been a couple of technical hitches in the last few. Coming up, we've got all the games that I've been to in the year 2025. That will probably be next week at some point, because I'm going to have a couple of guests and I need to arrange a proper time for them to meet up and discuss when that is going to happen. It'll be over a Zoom call or something like that. And we've also got some games I will be going to. Going to go to Colton Town versus Anstey Nomads, who I just found out have signed Martin Waghorn. I've got David Nugent as a player coach. So a couple of ex-Rams in that one. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff to come on this channel this year. We've got some AFCON games I'll start doing live watch-alongs to, especially as it gets towards the more competitive end of it. We've got the World Cup. We'll do a lot of watch-alongs to. We've got a couple of FA Cup games we're going to do a lot of watch-alongs to. Going to go to some games myself, get some shorts up on the channel. There's a few other ones I've got in the pipeline as well. I won't unveil too many of them at the moment, but it should be a good year, 2026, and I hope you're enjoying it already. Goodbye for now, though.